The rope dropped heavy, and with it the weight of a man's soul hit the dirt. The outlaw's boots kicked once, twice, then stilled under the noose as the desert wind carried his final scream into the fading sun. "This ain't justice. This is murder," he had shouted moments before, voice cracking like dry timber in a wildfire. But the rancher's hands didn't tremble as he pulled the lever, not until afterward. Now he stood there, hat low, jaw tight, watching the body sway. Pride wasn't supposed to break like this. Justice wasn't supposed to taste like ashes in your throat. The young woman stood nearby, fists clenched against her skirt. Her eyes never left the man swinging from the rope. He had been her stepfather, her jailer, her curse, and now just another corpse under a sky turning red with shame. The townsfolk shifted, boots crunching in the dust. No one spoke. No one breathed too loud. Even the horses seemed uneasy, ears flicking at the silence. The rancher finally turned, his shadow long in the dying light. One man muttered. Law took its time. Another spat. Law weren't the one pulled the rope. The rancher didn't answer. Couldn't. His pride felt splintered like a fence post hit by lightning. He walked away from the gallows slow, as if each step drove the noose tighter around his own neck. Behind him, the young woman's voice rose soft but shaking. "It's over, right?" The rancher paused at the question. For a heartbeat, the wind filled the space where words should be. He looked back once, eyes hard. "We'll see," he said, because deep down, he knew evil didn't always stay buried. The camera of this story lingered on the rope, swaying gently in the dusk, creaking like an old door that never shuts all the way. The sunset bled across the sky, painting the dirt red, as if the land itself couldn't tell the difference between justice and revenge. And somewhere, carried by the wind, came the faintest echo of the outlaw's last words, a promise that death wasn't the end of this fight. The desert didn't forgive. It didn't care about right or wrong, only about how long a body could last under the sun before it quit breathing. She had been tied to the wagon wheel by hands that once pretended to be family. The outlaw's laugh still echoed in her skull as he rode away, leaving her bound tight, wrists raw, mouth dry as bone dust. "Won't be long," he had sneered, the whiskey on his breath, sharp as the knife he cut her cheek with before mounting his horse. "Vultures'll get to you, for the law ever will." Hours passed. The sun beat down, a hammer on an anvil of sand. Her dress clung to sweat and fear. Each breath tasted of grit. Far off, a hawk circled. She tried to scream once. It came out a croak. The ropes bit deeper when she struggled. The wheel didn't move. Neither did Mercy. Then, faint at first, came the sound of hooves, slow, steady, like judgment itself was riding in. The rancher. He swung down from the saddle, dust rising around his boots. His eyes scanned the horizon first, then locked on her. "Easy now," he muttered, crouching beside the ropes. Her voice cracked. "He left me here. I can see that." His knife sliced through the cords, the tension snapping with a sting across her skin. She collapsed forward, legs too weak to stand. He caught her before she hit the dirt. "Water," she rasped. He gave her the canteen. She drank like she hadn't seen water in years. Some spilled down her chin, darkening the dust at her feet. He looked toward the sun-baked trail where the outlaw had vanished, jaw tight, eyes cold. "He won't get far," the rancher said. She shook her head, fear and anger tangled in her breath. "He'll come back." The rancher stood slowly, hat shadowing his face. "Then so will I." Behind them the desert wind swept the rope's ack, Ross the sand like the tail of some dead snake. The horizon burned red, and the day gave no promise except one. This wasn't over. The ranch stood alone against the endless prairie, its fences splintered, its barn leaning like an old man waiting for death, but tonight it was the only shelter between her and the world that wanted her gone. The girl sat by the hearth, knees drawn up, shivering, though the fire cracked warm and steady. Her dress was torn, dust ground into the fabric like scars that wouldn't wash out. She held the cup of water in both hands as if afraid it might vanish like everything else. The rancher moved slow around the room, lantern light painting deep lines across his face. He wasn't a man of many words. Didn't need to be. The set of his shoulders, the way he checked the windows twice before hanging his hat. It all said enough. She finally spoke, voice small. "You think he's still out there?" The rancher didn't look at her when he answered. "Men like him, they don't ride away for good. They circle back." The fire popped, a single spark leaping upward before dying in the dark above. She took another sip, knuckles white around the cup. "I used to think he was family." The rancher stopped at the window, watching the night swallow the last colors of sunset. His voice was low, heavy as saddle leather. "Blood don't make a man family. His deeds do." Outside, the wind moaned through the cottonwoods, rattling the shutters like some restless ghost trying to get in. He turned then, pulled a blanket from the back of a chair and draped it over her shoulders. She flinched at the touch before realizing it was kindness, not cruelty. "You'll stay here tonight," he said. "Ain't safe nowhere else." She nodded but kept her eyes on the flames. "Feels like he's still watching." The rancher checked the rifle leaning near the door, thumb brushing the worn stock. "If he comes," he said, voice steady, "he won't like what he finds." The camera of the story lingered on the two of them, her by the fire, him at the door, as if the whole ranch held its breath, waiting for the night to decide what it would bring. The sun bled itself dry across the horizon when he came. The outlaw rode slow, a dark figure against the dying light, hat low, rifle across his saddle. His horse snorted steam into the cooling air as hooves crushed the dry earth leading up to the ranch gate. The girl froze at the window when she saw him, her breath caught like a rabbit spotting the wolf. The rancher stepped outside, shotgun in hand, boots stirring up the day's last dust. He didn't call for him to stop, didn't raise the gun yet, just watched. The outlaw grinned, teeth white in the red glow of sundown. "Evening, neighbor," he called, voice rough as gravel. The rancher said nothing. The outlaw swung a leg off his horse, boots landing hard. He looked at the girl in the window, tipped his hat with mock courtesy. "Missy, how's life with the lawman here? Treating you better than your old stepdaddy?" The girl's face stayed pale and silent. The rancher finally spoke, low and even. "You're trespassing." "Funny," the outlaw said, pacing slow along the fence, eyes never leaving the rancher. "I figured since you killed me once already, I might as well pay my respects." The girl whispered from the window, "Don't talk to him." The rancher's finger rested near the trigger. "You had your chance to leave." The outlaw stopped walking. His smile was all teeth now. "This ain't over. Not by a long shot." They stood there, the air tight between them, until the outlaw turned back toward his horse. He climbed into the saddle, looking down at the rancher with a grin that promised worse things than death. "Keep her warm for me," he said, spurring his horse into the dusk. The rancher raised the shotgun then, just enough so the man saw the barrel shine in the last light. "You come back," the rancher said, voice hard as iron. "You won't leave again." The outlaw just laughed, fading into the horizon like smoke from a dying fire. The ranch stood quiet once more, but everyone knew the night hadn't settled anything. It had only begun counting down. Dust rose on the horizon like a warning as the sheriff's horse appeared, sun glinting off the badge pinned to his chest. The young woman pressed her hands to the window, heart thundering, hope and fear tangled in the same rhythm. The rancher met him at the gate, shotgun resting against his hip, eyes sharp. "Sheriff," he said, voice low, "we got trouble circling close." The sheriff tipped his hat, scanning the empty plains beyond. "I heard your friend here caused a stir." His gaze flicked toward the girl. "Miss, You all right?" She nodded, voice trembling. I think so." Behind them, the wind stirred the loose boards of the barn, carrying memories of the outlaws' laughter and threats. The sheriff's horse snorted, stamping on the dry earth as if sensing the danger too. "Law don't ride fast enough for some," the rancher muttered, "but it rides." The sheriff nodded, hand brushing the butt of his rifle. "We'll make sure it reaches him before he reaches you again." The girl's voice cracked as she whispered, "He'll come back, won't he?" "Men like that," the sheriff said, voice firm but calm. "They never know when to quit, but neither do we." The rancher squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of the desert night ahead. The sheriff's deputies arrived, boots crunching in the dirt, shadows long in the setting sun. Lanterns were lit, flickering like watchful eyes over the ranch. The young woman watched, seeing a strange comfort in their presence. The rancher's hands rested near his weapons, but his posture softened, knowing reinforcements were here. The sheriff approached, voice low, almost a whisper. "We'll stay till he's gone, and if he comes at night, we'll meet him in the dark." The wind carried the scent of dry sage and horses, the smell of the West itself. The rancher glanced at the girl. "Night falls fast here. Be ready." She nodded, gripping the blanket around her shoulders. The sky was bruised purple and gold, and every shadow seemed to twitch with unseen menace. The narrator's voice echoed over the scene, soft and heavy. "In the West, the law is a lantern, but some nights are darker than oil can burn, and when evil waits in the shadows, only courage and watchful eyes keep it at bay." The camera lingered on the trio, the rancher, the girl, and the sheriff, standing like sentinels against the sprawling darkness of the plains, waiting for a night that promised nothing but confrontation. The night arrived like a thief, silent at first, then roaring. The outlaw came back with his gang, shadows mounted on black horses, torches flickering like fireflies corrupted by sin. Their hooves thundered across the plains, carrying the smell of smoke, whiskey, and menace. Inside the ranch, the girl huddled behind the hearth, knees pressed to her chest, eyes wide as the walls rattled with the sound of hooves and shouting. The rancher crouched by the door, shotgun loaded, eyes scanning every flicker of torchlight that danced across the yard. "They're close," he muttered, voice steady but low. "Stay down." The outlaw's laugh cut through the night, sharp and cruel. "Thought you could hide, missy," he yelled. "We'll see how your friend here likes a little company." Torches slammed against the barn door, horses kicked, wood splintered, sparks flew when a stray shot caught the dry timbers. The smell of smoke crept into the kitchen. The girl's breath came fast, harsh, tasting of dust and fear. The rancher moved like a shadow himself, boots silent on the floorboards. He fired once, then another, each shot a promise of resistance. Outside, the gang faltered, horses whinnying in panic, but the outlaw pressed forward, rifle glinting under the torchlight. "Not tonight," the rancher growled, stepping into the doorway, lantern in one hand, shotgun in the other. The fire from the torches cast long, menacing shadows, making the outlaw seem larger than life, a demon riding across the night. The girl flinched at the sound of metal clashing, a horse screaming, a gunshot echoing too close. She swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table like a lifeline, trying not to scream. The sheriff's distant whistle carried over the plains. A signal, a promise. The outlaw's gang hesitated, nerves fraying, but their leader's fury didn't waver. The narrator's voice cut through the chaos, calm yet heavy. "Hell rides on hooves when hatred leads the charge, and the night doesn't care whose blood it spills first." The rancher moved between the girl and the firelight, each shot, each step, a shield against the darkness pressing in. The barn roof groaned, sparks raining down like a sky on fire, yet in the heart of the terror, the rancher's eyes never left her. For now, the night belonged to chaos. But the fight had only begun, and the law was still coming. The barn burned like a beacon of rage, flames licking the night sky, shadows twisting in every corner. The outlaw had cornered her, his hands like iron around her shoulders, rifle pressed close to his chest. The heat from the fire singed their faces, and the acrid smell of smoke filled her lungs. "Let her go," the rancher called, standing at the edge of the yard, shotgun steady, eyes locked on the outlaw. His boots pressed into the scorched earth, heart pounding, every muscle coiled for the fight. "She's mine," the outlaw spat, teeth bared, eyes wild. "Always has been, always will be." The girl struggled, kicking against his legs, but he tightened his grip. Her fingers clawed at his sleeve, desperation raw, every breath a razor against fear. "Not tonight," the rancher growled, stepping close. "Sir," lantern swinging to illuminate the scene. "Not ever again." The outlaw laughed, a sound that cracked like lightning over the prairie. "You think the law can stop me? You think your friends can save her?" Then in the distance a chorus of hoofbeats rose over the chaos. The sheriff and his deputies, lanterns bobbing, rifles raised. Their arrival was a tide of steel and authority crashing over the outlaw's arrogance. The outlaw froze, calculating, rage coiling tighter with every step the lawmen drew closer. The girl's chest heaved, sweat and soot streaked across her skin, and she felt a flicker of hope as the sheriff shouted commands. "Drop the girl! Hands where I can see 'em!" The outlaw's fingers tightened one last time, but the rancher moved like a shadow between them, eyes cold, voice firm. "Let her go, or ride to hell tonight." The barn seemed to hold its breath. Flames roared around them, the heat unbearable, yet the night carried the weight of law coming to reclaim what evil had tried to steal. A final desperate struggle, a gunshot, the crack of rifles echoing across the plains. The outlaw's grip faltered, deputies closed in, shackles clinked as iron wrapped around his wrists. The girl stumbled, the rancher catching her, arms steadying her shaking form. She looked into his eyes, gratitude and relief mingling with the fear that still clung to her like smoke. The narrator's voice rose over the settling chaos. "Sometimes the darkest nights bring the fiercest light, and when courage meets law, even the cruelest hearts can be chained." The wind carried the faint scent of burned wood and freedom as the outlaw was led away, his threats fading into the night.